Baruch Hashem Yahweh. That's why I would advise all our radio listeners to pull up a cot or a mattress near to their computer and just we wax now. Just we wax. This is written to me by Allie Turner, a woman soldier serving her country in Iraq. She's a member of Your Arms to Israel. She distributes the Restoration of Scriptures True Name Edition among the soldiers in Iraq, our American soldiers. Yep. They're all party. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Yeah, and I communicate with her fairly often. And she sent this out to me and to others on her mailing list. And I know this is long, but I'll try to read it quickly. I and my co-workers who hail from the Philippines as well as India get picked up and to be taken to work every morning, 7 days a week, at 5:45 hours. That's 5:45 a.m. Sean, the fellow who works nights at Camp Stryker Rec Center, pulled up to carry us here and mentioned that Saddam's execution would take place before 6 o'clock, 6 hours. What a strange feeling it was to arrive at work a few minutes later and know that in a moment, not at all far from me, one of the most brutal men who ever lived was going to meet his maker. Oh, he met Allah. He met his God. Trust me. He's in the same place where his deity is. It was bitter, dark, and blustery outside, as the sun had not yet risen. Winters in Iraq are surprisingly cold. And though this is my third one, I never get used to the polarity in temperature. The sense of surreality regarding the fact that this man who made millions quake was now himself going to the gallows cannot be described. When it was announced that he was dead, I cried momentarily, not out of joy, but perhaps due to some sense of relief. Iraqis danced, and I don't blame them. Iraqis wailed, and I don't get it. Later we were told that while he was without his usual swagger, as he approached the noose, to me it is telling that almost his last words were spoken it to a human, were straight to hell. That pretty much sums up his view of his fellow man, I think. I have talked to numbers of Iraqis whose lives were at least made miserable, and others who lost family members or friends at the behest of the butcher of Baghdad. I have heard in detail horrific descriptions from his victims. Now listen to this. I know I don't like to read. There's a reason I don't like to read, because I'm like you. I like exciting teaching and preaching, but this is important stuff. I have heard in detail horrific descriptions from his victims of what it was like to be tortured by his goons. I have worked in a building where a woman bled out from being tied up and having her nipples cut off. Said building was across from the alligator pits, where the people were suspended over the pit, and they were snacked upon by the inhabitants of that pit, photographed by the Republican Guard. Those pictures were posted in the building across the street from me. This is an American soldier serving in Iraq, first-hand eyewitness of the atrocities of the butcher of Baghdad. Another building where I worked was just a few hundred feet away from the lion's den, where Uday and Qusay, Saddam's sons, fed their sexual victims to the cats and watched as they were devoured. First they would have sex, and they would rape and abuse these innocent people, and then they would throw them into lion and enjoy as they were devoured. This is the kind of stuff that would happen in Saddam Hussein's Iraq. I've spoken with a man who narrowly escaped the gassing in Halabah and described the sight when he crept back into town of the murdered thousands with eyes bulging and staring up at him. Retired General Wesley Clark recently described Saddam as being simply unpleasant. If Saddam was unpleasant, then I guess we should say Hitler was simply misguided, or perhaps acting out. I don't think so. I am also quite mindful that Saddam's wasted life and inevitable death touched on something else which was recently rubbed raw in my soul. So I'll move on. I have just come back from a 2-week rest and relaxation in Germany, and it was one of the most wonderful vacations I have ever had. It was also incredibly difficult. This is from Officer Ali Turner. It was also incredibly difficult as I went to Dachau, the infamous German concentration camp, where at least 188,000 were tortured, experimented upon, hanged. A few were gassed and most put in ovens. Beginning at the age of 12, I passionately studied what went down in Nazi Germany. I have read biographical and autobiographical accounts, seen movies, watched source document footage, and seen interviews. Nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared me for actually being there, sanitized as it now is. To stand in front of the ovens and inside the gas chamber was utterly undoing. And while I don't think there was anything new or different that I could contribute to more than 60 years after Dachau was liberated by the 45th and 157th Infantry units of the 7th Army, there was something undeniably similar to Dachau and what the Butcher of Baghdad did to his fellow Iraqis. It was the same maniacal hatred, the same megalomania. There is a picture of Dachau at which I stared for a long time. It is a black and white aerial shot of the prisoners as the Allied soldiers are taking the camp. The photo of one man in particular stood out at me, his arms stretched up and out as both a child and a victor, his eyes veritably dancing, his grin infectious. These are graphic and detailed sketches of the positions used to torture the residents of Dachau. They are exactly the same ones Saddam used on his victims. I suppose there are only so many things that can be done to a human body between Hitler and Saddam. I think it is safe to say that they plumbed the depths of their collective curiosity. Hitler felt Jews were vermin, and that was not the only people group targeted by his darkness. Saddam said there were 3 things which should not be allowed to exist: flies, Jews, and Persians. Knowing that Saddam was phobic about germs, I imagine the environs of his 78 palaces were scrupulously kept free of flies. We know what he did to Persians, whom in the present day we refer to as Kurds. What is little known is that he was poised to strike Israel, as well as Saudi Arabia, with 2 types of deadly sarin gas and a nerve agent. That's what the media won't tell you. If we had not gone into the Gulf War, he would have attacked Saudi Arabia and Israel with chemical and biological weapons, sarin. Which, by the way, the UN inspectors found. You know, they told you there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? That's a lie. They found sarin gas. It's in the UN report. But they claimed it was such limited quantities that they didn't want to make a big issue out of it. So you have to be careful what you hear in the media. And don't forget, he attacked Israel in the Gulf War, invaded Kuwait, was poised to attack Saudi Arabia, and attacked Iran, 4 sovereign nations as well. What is little known is that, and I just read that, the only reason why he was not successful in attacking Israel with chemical weapons is because the coalition struck first in Desert Storm, and the planes that were slated for the mission were destroyed. Would that Neville Chamberlain had not sold the UK on peace in our time by trying to appease Hitler. I firmly believe that creatures such as these two would never be satisfied with simply being contained. You know how they tell us he was being contained, we should have left well enough alone, right? That's what they tell us, that's what the media tell us. Don't worry, he was being contained. Yeah, but if we had not taken apart his planes, he would have gassed Israel and he would have gassed Saudi Arabia, the land of Mecca. People say, how could the Islamic writings in the Hadiths, which are the writings and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, comparable to the Jewish Talmud, how could Mecca be destroyed by Muslims? The Turks almost destroyed Mecca in the 1920s, and here Saddam had no qualms by attacking Saudi Arabia, and a mistaken missile could destroy all of Mecca with 1 missile.